Hi there, this is Michael Gwynn with FEITIAN, and today we'll be talking about the FIDO Alliance and FEITIAN, and the title is Forget Your Enterprise Passwords and Find More Security. So the FIDO Association and FEITIAN are proud to present some passwordless option for enterprise organizations. So just a quick introduction of my some statistics regarding passwords and how challenging they could be, just to make sure you know that that there are actual costs associated with passwords and using passwords in your enterprise organization. So I'd like to introduce or just announce the speakers for today. From the FIDO Alliance, we have Andrew Shikiar, the Executive Director and Chief Marketing Officer. And from FEITIAN, we have Gautam Vij, the Chief Revenue Officer at FEITIAN Technologies, and myself. I am Michael Gwynn, the Director of Strategic Projects at FEITIAN Technologies. So a quick introduction about FEITIAN, then we'll go into some additional statistics, and then Andrew will give us some information regarding the FIDO Alliance, and we'll sum it up with some of the options that you can proceed with for FEITIAN. So FEITIAN has a mission to build secure, innovative, and value-priced security products that are used for authentication, identification, access management, and payment. We've been doing this for over 20 years with 1,000 employees and over half in R&D. We have over 6,000 clients in 100 countries. FEITIAN is a member of the Microsoft Intelligence Security Association, as well as a seated board member of the FIDO Alliance. Just a quick overview of some of the FEITIAN customers. Brief information on some of our technology partners. And then if you want to see what passwordless looks like, let's give you a quick example of that. So in this situation, the user has already enrolled their fingerprint and associated with their Windows Hello, and they touch the Bluetooth, and now they put their finger on the biometric, and they are logged in. So it's that quick and that easy for logging in passwordlessly. Okay, Gautam?
Hey, thanks, Michael, and thanks everyone for joining our webinar. So I wanted to share with you our mission to make passwords extinct and why we really care about passwordless. And what you see on this slide is that identity attacks threaten organizations every day, right? And what does that mean? So if you look at the numbers on the right, and let's go step by step. So the first number that you see is approximately 4,000 daily ransomware attacks, and that kind of looks like statistically insignificant when you compare the world population. But let me tell you this, we have been recently approached by at least 2 of our prospect customers, which were individuals. One of them was a dentist that was attacked and held ransom for $500,000, otherwise their data would be frozen. Another one has an IT consulting firm, similar amount, they were held ransom, pay the money, otherwise lose the data, or it'll be encrypted and it'll be basically locked up forever. When that happens, when you hear real cases like that, it really shakes you up and says, this is not a statistic. But when it happens to you, it becomes so real. The probability of that happening in that case is 100% because you're affected. And we're looking at getting those people on a webinar in the future. But let's look at the next number, 300 million daily fraudulent attacks. What does that number mean? And 167 data breaches. So what does that number really mean? Let's look into this in this slide. Passwords have been there for centuries. Kings, empires, secret codes. So what are we trying to solve here? If you look at the numbers on the right and the data on the left, most data breaches are happening because of bad passwords, weak, default, stolen passwords. If you look at the number, 81% of the breaches are happening because of credential theft, which basically means a password is bad or it's repeated and stuff like that. So 73%, what does that mean? It means 7 out of 10 websites have the same password, which means if you log into your work, then you log into your financial account, and then after work you log into your own, some website for entertainment or have your app for entertainment. It basically means 7 out of 10 of those websites are using the same password, which means that if you went to the weakest link, which is, an application or a website, that a hacker attacks, which you can see 50% of that is happening actually today. Employees use half the application not even supported or approved by IT, which means that's what the problem is, right? The hackers are going after the easiest and the least secure websites. They pick up your passwords, and the probability is 70% and plus that the same password is being used by you for the most important financial transactions of your corporate network. So that's the problem. The problem is that passwords are easy to break. Hackers are not breaking into firewalls anymore. They're breaking into through your passwords into the enterprise. But the good news is this can be solved. 99.9% of the passwords can be blocked with the MFA solution. And that's what we're here to pitch. And that's what our mission is, to educate the world that, hey, this is probably the cheapest solution you can buy for the maximum protection you can get. You can protect your entire life savings, your assets, your corporate assets. So we are on a mission to educate the people, and we take it upon, ourselves, and you should take it upon yourselves as well, to educate yourselves, to educate your family, to your employees. If you do not have an MFA, which can cost as less as $20, but you're saving, protecting yourself $20,000, could be $200,000, could be $2 million, could be enterprise, could be $20 million, $20 billion. If you're not using an MFA solution, you have to ask yourself, why aren't you doing that? And as you can see in these numbers, phishing attacks are increasing as well. Why? Because banks is where the money is. And individuals who don't know enough about security, they are clicking on those emails to sign in without knowing that this is actually hackers sending a phishing link and collecting your passwords and then logging in. And we're seeing that because banks are now coming to us saying, hey, not only do we want passwords for ourselves, not only do we want MFA for ourselves, we want MFA for our clients as well. Reason is, a lot of these banking clients are old people and they don't remember passwords. They use the same passwords. 7 out of 10 passwords are the same. And that's why we have a solution. It's such a cost-effective solution that makes total sense. And as you can see in numbers here, a lot of people prefer that. People don't want to get away from, majority want to get away from passwords. A lot of people want biometrics. As you can see, 67% say, hey, don't tell me to remember a PIN also, because a PIN is a password. It's a shared secret. Just like you can break into password, you can break the PIN. But a biometric is where it's true security. Nobody can hack into your fingerprint, right? Our solutions store the fingerprint on the device. There is no way to get to it. And as you can see, the government wants you to deploy MFA. There are a lot of initiatives that require MFA. A lot of insurance companies now require MFA if you want to get the right protection, sits on the rise. Now, this slide is very simple to understand. All it means is, if you look at the chart on the right, it means traditionally, if you want high security, it'll be inconvenient, right? Security means it's inconvenient. You got to pass a lot of hoops so that you're secure. But if it's convenient, it'll be most likely not that secure. We have come up with a solution which is both convenient and highly secure. What does that mean? It means if you look at the numbers on the left, it reduces your hacking opportunities. It authenticates you. It provides you triple factor authentication, because now you're not using a password. You're using an asymmetric technology, which is called PKI technology, which Andrew is going to cover in more details, and you're using a biometric which stays with you. Okay, it improves your user experience. No passwords ever, no resetting, none of that, and it reduces the IT cost because there's no issues with passwords. There's no issue with our key. Let's go on to the next slide. And Gartner agrees with us. Gartner says by 2022, 60% of the large enterprises will use some kind of MFA. And 90% of the mid-size will also use MFA, and that makes total sense. Why not? You're seeing the increase in threats, see the increase in hacking, and biometric solutions, the cheapest thing you can buy, like I said before, for the maximum amount of protection. It's a no-brainer. So, we want to highly encourage you, if you're not using MFA, to, seriously look into it. If you know people around you who are not using MFA, there is absolutely no reason not to use MFA, and that's what we're trying to, share with the world, our message. So hopefully you can take that message and spread that forward. With that, I'm done. Michael, back to you.
Thank you very much for that, Gautam, and the information provided with the statistics. Let's just go on. This is just a quick introduction. We will not go in detail at this time on the different security keys, but what I do want to show is that there's a variety of solutions that FEITIAN can provide in terms of the security keys as well as smart cards. And these form factors give you an option of using a very secure passwordless solution and having different interface capabilities, including a lightning key, Bluetooth, NFC, and then also using the form factors of a card for a wearable and combining that with access, as well as our biometric offerings. So again, this is just a quick overview right here. This point, I'd like to do just a quick introduction of FIDO and give you the overview of the difference on that. FIDO stands for Fast Identity Online, and their goal is to reduce the use of the ever dangerous passwords, as Gautam just showed us. The big differences are, number one, that there is no passwords or username stored on the server, and then number two, authentication cannot be tricked by phishing. Quite simply, you can't hack a password that doesn't exist. And again, we're using the asymmetric key pairs in this, and there's no password being stored on the server or being used when you access your account. And then on the bottom, number three, there's nothing specifically to remember on this because you have your key with your biometric, and it's a very easy process. And then number four, it's a single gesture that all you're doing is putting your finger onto the biometric key and doing that. One advanced notice is that with the biometric systems, you can easily implement for higher security users 3FA by using the biometric with the security key and also requiring a PIN. So we're not promoting that for everyone, but if there's specific high value users that you want to secure, it's a great option with the biometric, the PIN, and the security key to get 3FA. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to Andrew Shikiar. He is the Executive Director and Chief Marketing Officer of the FIDO Alliance. So I'm going to stop sharing at this point.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. Can you hear me? It'll take me a second to get my screen set up here.
Hear you loud and clear, Andrew, and appreciate your assistance today.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks for having me. As I get set up here, I just wanted to thank you and Gautam and FEITIAN for having me on the call today. FEITIAN's a board member of FIDO Alliance and has been a great innovator in the space of security keys. So I'm constantly impressed by the innovation and competition that FEITIAN's brought to the market, and appreciate everything FEITIAN's done for the Alliance and for this opportunity to talk to your customers today. So what I want to do today is give all of you kind of some background on FIDO, so where we came from, who we are, where we're heading, and give you some context as you consider how to implement FIDO authentication within your own enterprise and for your customers. So Gautam and Michael ran through some statistics and went through some slides. Some of this may seem similar, but this is the landscape that FIDO inherited when the Alliance was launched over 7 years ago. The imperative is to have simpler, stronger authentication. And really the reason we were formed was to address the plague of data breaches. And user authentication is the tip of the spear of data breaches. And I thought the statistics that Gautam shared were spot on. Right? So we all know that over 80% of data breaches are caused by passwords. But it's real interesting to actually look a little bit closer at that as to the precise cause. Right? Whether it's reuse, theft, credential stuffing, things like that. Now, these are all symptoms, frankly, of the problem that come from having shared secrets on a server. So depending on passwords or other shared secrets to authenticate users. So backing up to this slide here, we look at passwords, right? That's what this image shows. Passwords, as we know, have very poor usability and horribly weak security. We, meaning all of us on this call, can relate to password challenges as individuals, right? You're either being asked to have a very complex password, which is harder to remember, or you default to the easier thing, which is a simpler password, or some small variants on that, which then gives you, worse security. And the fact of the matter is, as we just illustrated, anything on a server, even a complex password, can and will be stolen. So beyond passwords, there's always been, not always, but for a long time, there's been forms of 2FA, through traditionally OTPs and dedicated OTP tokens. Now, certainly, as Gautam pointed out, as Microsoft stated, that any form of an MFA, any second layer, will protect you against the majority of phishing attacks and credential attacks. However, you still need to look at usability and security, right? So while security is certainly stronger, it's not impervious to attacks, right? So at the end of the day, an OTP is still a shared secret on a server. Now, it's a secret for a shorter time period, but could still be manipulated through more sophisticated phishing attacks that feature man-in-the-middle attacks or relay attacks, where there's literally a hacker in the middle relaying the OTP that's being entered onto a real site and taking over that account. Additionally, the usability of OTPs is quite challenging, right? So the usability challenges range from if you have a traditional token, having the token keychain problem, or if you have an SMS OTP, you might have delivery problems, or the need to juggle between a handset and a PC or another type of device. So usability is lacking there as well. So again, as the slide says, the industry imperative, FIDO's imperative, is to find simpler, stronger authentication, and that's what we do, right? We're creating open standards for simpler, stronger authentication that are based on asymmetric public key cryptography, and that's a mouthful, and we'll talk about what that means in a second. But the key thing is that it's simple. All this is accomplished through a single gesture, and proving that you're in possession of that device. So whether that's a gesture of inserting a security key or touching a security key, or simply staring at your camera for Windows Hello logins, this is all very simple, stronger user authentication that is unphishable and prevents account takeovers. So that's who FIDO, that's been our mission since day one. This is our leadership. This is our board of directors. We have 40 companies on our board of directors. I mentioned FEITIAN's on our board, but you see these other companies here as well. And the way I was looking at this slide is if I asked you or anyone, what type of companies do you need to have sitting around a table to address a password problem, I think you'd see logos that look a lot like this, right? So we have companies that create the platforms and devices that we use every day. So Apple, Microsoft, Samsung, the chipset manufacturers. We have specialists in identity and security. So not just FEITIAN, but other companies such as Yubico and Knock Knock and OneSpan, RSA, and many, many more. And last but not least, we have service providers whose very businesses are dependent on the ability to deliver high assurance services to billions of customers worldwide. So we have all the payment networks involved with FIDO, leading social media providers like Facebook and Line, e-commerce providers like Amazon. So you name it. These are companies whose businesses necessitate something like FIDO coming to the fore. So that combination of companies and that composition that comprises FIDO Alliance and helps us build our specifications and develop the FIDO ecosystem. Beyond these 40 companies, we have over 200 other organizations involved. We have sponsor members who help build the specifications and shape the specifications. We have associate members who are largely building products and building up the FIDO ecosystem. And last but not least, we have liaison partnerships. These are with other nonprofit organizations to help us identify and articulate added use cases either regionally or vertically around the world. So this is who FIDO is. Let's back up to a little bit to how FIDO is addressing this problem. So let's look at how old authentication works. This is password-based authentication. It's very simple, right? You have a user on the left-hand side, you have a server on the right-hand side. There's a connection, some sort of device connects these two people, and the user authenticates themselves online by presenting a human-readable shared secret, as the slide says. So I have a secret password, I enter it, and presto, I'm granted access. The challenge, of course, as Michael showed in his intro to FIDO, is that there's a lot of things that can go wrong in this seemingly simple connection, such as passwords getting stolen, hacked, manipulated, and so on and so forth. So what FIDO's done is change this paradigm significantly. The key thing, when I break this down, is introducing the concept of an authenticator. The authenticator, you can look at it at a high level, kind of mediates the authentication process. The authenticator is a thing, it's a concept at the same time. When you enroll with your FIDO credentials with an account, when you establish a FIDO account, the first thing that happens is that a unique key pair is created. Right? This is where public key cryptography kicks in. The public key is stored on the server, and a private key stays on the device. The private key is dedicated to one app, but your authenticator can hold as many private keys as you wish. The public key has no material value, right? So the big change here, the fundamental change, is that whereas instead of having a password stored on the right-hand side of that server, which can be stolen, reused, and resold, and stuffed, and so on and so forth, the public key has no material value. So even if a hacker gets into that server and takes that public key, there's no value in its reuse. So that's the authenticator. It's the key to the first step in FIDO authentication. For the authenticator, and for authentication to take place, first the user must verify herself. And so it requires a user gesture before the private key can be used. So that can be, this is where you're proving possession, right? So it's either touching a key or using a biometric to verify that the user's in possession and that it is who they say they are. After that, that activates the private key. Then there's a challenge response activity between the public key and the private key, between the server and the authenticator. All sorts of metadata is exchanged here that includes the unique URL string of that key pair that cannot be spoofed, which is why FIDO is immune to phishing. It also includes other kind of value-added information about the authenticator. So I'll talk a little bit about our certified authenticator program. For different use cases, you may have a higher level authenticator, which can also be communicated back to the service provider and their service and their server, so they can factor that into their risk score as authenticating the user to their service. So this at a high level is how FIDO works. If you want more technical details, we have information on our website where we can go into more depth on all of these steps. So I talked about the authenticator a little bit. I said it's both a concept and a thing. This is kind of the thing piece of that equation. Authenticators fall into a couple categories. First, we see bound or platform authenticators. These are the biometrics that are built into your laptop, right? So when you use Windows Hello, you're using a camera or a thumbprint scanner, for example, on your device, or an Android phone, use fingerprint or Face ID, Touch ID. That's a bound authenticator. We also have roaming authenticators. So this includes a whole range of security keys that Michael just showed you, and that many other vendors have on the marketplace. And most interestingly, most recently, we've extended that paradigm to include your handset as a roaming authenticator. So now your phone can function as a security key as well, which is really important as you start thinking about usability and access. Meaning, most people have a phone with them at all times, so they literally have a security key in their pocket that they can use for FIDO authentication. In both categories, you find support for different modalities, so you can either do trusted presence challenge, which is proving possession, or actually full user verification using biometrics, which is proving that the user is who she says she is. So those are the concepts of authenticators. A little bit more about FIDO's background, how we got to where we are today. Shortly after FIDO was launched, we focused on two distinct use cases that reflects actually the founding parties of FIDO Alliance. Let's talk first about U2F. So FIDO U2F was created by Yubico and Google and NXP, who are working on an unphishable way of proving second factor authentication. Right, so it's the U2F keys that you can use to simply touch that on top of your password to verify yourself, to stop phishing attacks on, say, an email account or online services. That has an underlying infrastructure of public key cryptography. Again, all the same approach we showed you a couple slides ago. At the same time as that was happening, the FIDO and another group of companies led by PayPal, Samsung, Knock Knock, and a couple others who are escaping me right now, we're coming up with a biometric approach to password replacement, whereby instead of, it's primarily for mobile phones, whereas instead of having to try to enter a password on a mobile phone, you could actually replace that using a biometric credential using the FIDO UAF standard. These are the FIDO's first two standards. They have the same underlying approach and principles of public key cryptography, protecting user privacy, and ease of use. What's really nice about this is that so many large companies actually served as early customers for these specifications. So the logos you see here are companies that, out of the box, or very shortly after launch, supported these two sets of specifications. So while that was certainly good progress in market, what FIDO realized that to really gain scale, to really gain traction, we had to go broader and target platforms, browsers, and devices, right? So targeting the web, targeting operating systems, and the devices themselves. And that's what we did through the release of FIDO2. So FIDO2 has two components to it. One is the web authentication component, which was a spec contributed by FIDO into the W3C, and that was ratified with W3C called Web Authent. Another piece to it is an extension to the U2F paradigm called CTAP, which is the user authenticator piece. And what's really critical about FIDO2 is that it was adopted by so many important platforms. All right, so both Android is FIDO certified and Windows 10 is FIDO certified, meaning that you can use the on-device biometrics of either of these instead of a password when logging in. So, for example, if you're on Android, you can go to ebay.com today, and it'll prompt you to use your fingerprint rather than your password, right? So really start addressing that usability issue. Likewise, by working through W3C, we saw strong support across the web browser community, right? So Web Authent was finalized, at least in strong beta form in May of 2018. Now the Vox had support from Edge, Chrome, and Firefox, and more recently Safari has built support into that platform as well, including just a couple of weeks ago, Apple announced not just support for second-factor security keys on macOS and iOS for Safari, but also platform biometrics. So you'll be able to use Face ID or Touch ID for Safari for websites that support FIDO authentication through Web Authent. So all told, over 2.5 billion computing devices, that excludes security keys, but handsets and PCs and tablets can support FIDO authentication natively with their platform biometrics. And this is a really important data point, because when we first started talking about FIDO several years ago, so many service providers and enterprises wanted to wait until they knew that their users could actually support FIDO authentication, and now they can. So that's a very important message to those of you who are thinking about when to deploy, is that now's the right time to deploy, because virtually all your customers can support FIDO authentication. And this matrix, there's a lot to digest here. The key thing is that it's largely green. What this shows is the FIDO2 platform browser support across operating systems, across browsers, and across transport protocols. Right. So you see, it's a pretty broad matrix. Around a year ago, this was a smaller set of boxes, and it was large yellow and red. It's now a broader set of boxes, and it's trending green, which is very positive. And this is all kind of the FIDO2 components. It's worth noting that for companies with a native app, mobile-first strategy, that the FIDO UAF specification continues to evolve and is highly applicable to getting started on native apps on iOS and Android. So that's our specifications, and kind of some background on what we do and where we came from. FIDO as a body does three key things. One, we create technical specifications. Secondly, we're building a B2B ecosystem with, through FIDO certification. And then lastly, we drive market adoption. So I want to talk a little bit about certification, which is very important, because frankly, if you just build specifications without a certification program, you don't know these things work together, and it's impossible to really gain and develop an ecosystem. So three key certification programs I think are relevant to all of you on this webcast today. First, we have functional certification. Right? So to be FIDO certified, you need to, A, conform to specifications. And then most importantly, there's an interoperability test that verifies that your products work together. So that means a FEITIAN security key, a FIDO2 security key will work with the FIDO2 server or work against Windows 11 or Windows 10. So that's a very important piece of the puzzle. We have over 900 FIDO certified products on market, ranging across our sets of specifications. The second thing we do, which I also mentioned earlier, is the security certification levels. And the key question this answers is, how well does the authenticator protect the private key? So to be clear, any FIDO authenticator will protect against scalable phishing attacks, hacking attacks, and all those things. Right? So that's our L1 basic authenticator. Does all that, and also fills out a vendor questionnaire to verify that they're promoting and utilizing best security practices. But additionally, when you get to L2 and L3, you start looking at where's the private key encrypted, and what's it protect against. All right, so L2 devices verify that the key is stored in a unique piece of hardware on that device, and that as such it protects against malware or software or OS attacks. And L3 requires biometric certification as well, and prevents against brute force and hardware attacks. And as we talked about before, in the authentication process, the enterprise or the service provider can detect and determine which type of key the user has. And to be clear, for the vast majority of authentication use cases, L1 is more than sufficient. But there may be some requirements for highly sensitive transaction confirmation or things like that, where one may wish the user to have L2 or L3 security keys. The last thing we do is a biometric certification program. It's actually adjacent to this, but it's an important program that we provided to the industry. It's the first, biometric program built for the marketplace at large to test the efficacy of different biometric components, such as for voice, face, fingerprint, iris, and things like that. So that's what we have from a FIDO certified ecosystem standpoint. What's this all mean to you? How do I get started? First and foremost, I'd encourage you all to seek FIDO certified products, right? For all the reasons I just mentioned. So we have FIDO certified servers out there. We have a listing on our website. You can look for servers specific to the spec you're implementing, but our best practice is to implement a universal server that can support authenticators from all three specifications. So you want to implement one of those, and then of course you want to make sure that your users have authenticators. So whether that's a security key from a company like FEITIAN, or using the onboard biometric in a Windows device, Android device, or now an Apple device, make sure that you contemplate what authenticators you need to use as well. Additionally, you can leverage cloud services that support FIDO. So like Azure AD has explicit FIDO2 support. You can use that as a basis to support your users as well. Also, as you get started, think about your use cases, right? So I just talked about this a little bit. If you have a mobile-first use case, that has its own set of considerations. Again, you might want to contemplate using UAF spec or look at other ways to target native devices or mobile devices. So do you want to do native apps? Do you want to do mobile web? And depending on what your use case is, you'll go down one path or another from your development standpoint, infrastructure standpoint, as you implement your strategy. Likewise, security keys, right? So security keys are being widely deployed in enterprises. You can have both U2F keys, which have a second factor, or full, actually pre-provision them with resident credentials, such that it's a full passwordless experience, logging into different environments. And as you saw, FEITIAN has a wide array of keys to address different use cases within the enterprise and outside the enterprise for you to consider. And last but not least, again, there's platform authenticators. So if you have users who are, if you have a Windows enterprise, for example, and you have users who have their own workstations or desktops, you want to look at ways to probably leverage Windows Hello in addition to other mechanisms for user authentication. So those are all things to contemplate as you seek to deploy. What you see here are, is a subset of the swath of companies that have deployed FIDO authentication today. These are largely consumer implementations, but the goal here is to give you a feel for the kind of the breadth and depth of companies that are deploying FIDO. So you see banking, you see commerce, you see cloud services, you see mobile services, insurance, government. Really, we're seeing deployment across sectors, across borders at great scale now, and that's only increasing as things move forward. A couple other things to think about. One is, we've introduced most recently a consumer brand. So this is probably most pertinent outside the enterprise as you look at the customer authentication. Our feeling is that there's benefit to having a common visual and user experience during the FIDO authentication process. So both that point of enrollment and that point of login. We have brand assets that you can choose to deploy with your own implementation. So you see this login with FIDO button. You see the eye mark, that little yellow person. We have a supporting website, logintofido.com, that you can point people to if you want to explain to them, what's happening here. And that site has both educational information for customers but also for your colleagues. You'll see this is a screenshot of the website. There's a really good link. That's a good resource in general for service providers that talk about kind of the business benefits of deploying FIDO authentication. So I'd encourage you to check this out. So, two last messages for you. One, I hope I made it evidently clear to you that FIDO is ready to be deployed today. You can match your use case to the specifications. There's a wide array of FIDO certified vendors you can work with to support your implementation, or you can also write directly the specifications and kind of roll your own FIDO infrastructure. We have a growing list of public resources that you can use to build your education, to develop your implementation strategies with case studies, best practices, developer assets. And these are all growing things that we're doing more and more of as we focus more and more on helping people be successful with their implementations, which reflects our expanded deployment engagement with the broader FIDO community. Next to last but not least, we have a conference coming up called Authenticate. This was meant to be a live conference in November in Seattle. It's now going to be virtual due to the COVID-19 situation. We'll have more details, but check out authenticatecon.com to get more information on this event. This will be the industry's first event focused solely on best practices for user authentication. And FEITIAN is a platinum sponsor of the event, and we're grateful for that. So to wrap things up, we see FIDO as the present and the future of authentication. Industries work together to craft an answer to the password problem that reflects broad industry support, probably tens of thousands of development hours and significant IP poured into our specifications and our outputs. We continue to innovate on our core specifications and emerging work areas, and we're very focused on enablement. So as you seek to deploy, work with your vendors, but also consider getting involved with FIDO to take part in some of the user groups and deployment groups we have to help people be successful with their implementations. So thank you. Let me turn things back to you, Michael.
Andrew, thank you very much for that information. And I will share my screen in just 1 second as we do this. That's a lot of information, and I definitely appreciate your time when you're not doing worldwide presentations and online presentations. I definitely appreciate and value that you were able to join us today. So with that, I'll continue on. Just a couple of quick admin notes for everyone. If you have questions, please use the BrightTalk application and type in your questions. At the end, Andrew, as well as Gautam, and myself will be available and we'll address the questions that you have for us. And then the other thing is we want to make sure that you know that at the end of this presentation there is a special offer that we'll be providing. No Ginsu knives will be involved, but it is a special offer related to the topic at hand. So with that, just getting back to the presentation, let's go into some more details about FEITIAN and our FIDO certified security keys and smart cards. All right. Let's talk about our true passwordless authentication. And with that, what you're looking to do is to ensure that the person who has access into the computer or the application or the cloud is actually the right person. And how are we doing that? We're doing that by non-connected hardware for a multi-factor authentication. And just to note about the way FEITIAN approaches this is that all of our systems are non-connected with the thought of if you have any kind of connected device with a connected database of either fingerprints or passwords, anything that is connected has the capability of being hacked. If it isn't hacked today, it may be hacked tomorrow. If it isn't hacked tomorrow, it may be next week or the week after. So all of the FEITIAN hardware solutions are non-connected and gives you that extra level of security. So with that device, we have the capability of connecting multiple ways with the application or the cloud or the device. We can go through Bluetooth, through NFC, as well as USB, USB-A, USB-C, And now we also have a key that interfaces through the Lightning port. So we have a number of different varieties, and it gives you the option that if for a large enterprise, perhaps everyone doesn't have the same exact key, they have the key that works best for them, but they're all using the same solution. So in this case, the user who's supposed to have access is this person. That person gives us the biometric, and they're gaining access with that. Nobody else can bring that biometric to the device. So let's go quick overview. And this is the device that a user is using, a connected device in this regard. And all they're doing is touching with the finger on the biometric to use for accessing Azure AD. And here on Windows Hello, we have the K33 or the all-in pass. And what that does is uses biometric with either NFC or BLE or a connection to a USB port, and they're in. This is an example of how easy it is to load the fingerprint into the device. You can either use Windows settings, or you can use a number of browser-related security key settings, including Chrome and other browsers and applications have devices where you can enroll your fingerprint on the security key. In this case, you always need to have a PIN associated with the biometric. They're going to verify that you do it, that you enter in the PIN, and then before you enter in or remove any biometric, you always have to enter the biometric PIN before you are able to access that. And you can see that there's a number of different form factors that we'll go into and show this today. So basically the process works that the user chooses to log in using the security key, and this is after they're enrolled. Once they're enrolled, they get a specific asymmetric key pair for that application or that cloud or that system. So then that server will ask for authentication on the device. The user touches the biometric quite simply, and that creates the response back to the application or device, and that device will verify that that is correct for gaining entrance. So let's give a quick overview of some of our devices. We actually have more than these, but I want to keep this as simple as possible. So let's take these kind of by twos. The first two on the left are allow you to access through multiple means of interface with the device, and the IE pass is the K44, and what that allows you to use is either the Lightning port or the USB-C port all on one key, and that has the capabilities of FIDO U2F as well as FIDO 2. The multi-pass device may look familiar. As we are doing manufacture for other OEM large providers, what that does, it allows you to use not only USB-A, but also NFC and BLE to connect with your systems. The next two keys have the ability to use both USB as well as NFC. And the most popular key that we usually use is the NFC K9 key, and that allows the user to interface via the USB-A port as well as NFC, and then just for the USB-C version is the K35. And both of those also can do FIDO, FIDO 2, and if needed, there's other applications that can be on the device, including HOTP. So it's important that if you're protecting other systems or legacy systems, we can load these onto our Java card operating system keys. The next two keys are the introduction into the biometric, if I could, the K26 and K27. Both of those are biometric with the access going into the USB port. The K26 uses USB-C, K27 uses USB-A. And with both of those, you can access and use FIDO U2F as well as FIDO 2. And just as a reminder, FIDO U2F is when you type your username and password, and instead of that second factor being generated by a text or email, it's generated just by using the key and tapping the key. The next device is the K33 all-in-pass device, and that's the one you saw being used with Bluetooth. It could also work with NFC on mobile devices, as well as connecting with a cable to either USB-A or C for that. And then one comment on NFC, the iPhones now are capable of reading NFC as long as it's an iPhone 7 or higher or iPhone iOS 13 or higher. The next three devices are card formats where we're combining multiple functions in one item. So the fingerprint card uses the biometric and has NFC, but can be used for physical access also. So that brings physical access in connection with the digital authentication and adding the identification card. So the users can wear this as a wearable and easily use it for extending into the physical access and increasing that with requiring the biometric when needed for either the physical access or the digital authentication. That card can also be used for payment, and that's what it's primarily designed for, so it has all the duration of a credit card. Next version is the all-in pass, and that's a little thicker than a standard card, and that gives you the capability of using Bluetooth because it does have a battery in it, and that is also has the option of connecting to a tethered USB-C port, and that is giving you a multi-function device that's a wearable because it can be used for physical access, digital authentication, as well as an identification card. And then going off the passwordless solution, we do have a campus card that adds physical access with an OTP generating card as well as an ID card. So just kind of letting you know about that. As you can see, all of our devices, none of them are attached devices, and we believe that gives you an extra level of security. So just to proceed, summarize with the passwordless, and we use the specific standards, gives you high security. The biometric is used in that, in our solutions, as well as the diversity of products. So just a reminder, if you're an organization that needs a FIDO certified server, FEITIAN does have a FIDO certified server. So please, if you're interested in finding more information about that, we're focusing really on the cards today, but we do have a FIDO certified server as well as servers that can do OTP as well as other protocols. All right, if you would like a discount for a FIDO key order, for the next 24 hours, we have available a 20% off discount code. And there's the discount code. One order of any size per customer is allowed with that code. So please take advantage of that while you can if you'd like to get these passwordless security keys in your hands or in the hands of your organization. All right, so the question I would ask you now before we are opening up to questions is to check to see what is your path to passwordless. What are you doing today to help your organization to go to passwordless solutions? And with that, I will open this up and we'll see if we can review some of the questions if we have any. All right, the first question is how have the physical card solutions become FIPS certified? FEITIAN is in the process of doing FIPS certification on the biometric solutions. They're working with one of the large certification organizations regarding that, and as soon as we get news on that, we'll definitely announce it. The next one is, let's see. I'm trying to, it looks like it's a mistyping there. If anybody else can read that. People have asked about the slide deck. You have our 3 information. If you want to email me, Michael Gwynn, at that email address, I can send you a link to the presentation because it has videos in it. The presentation itself will be available on BrightTalk, so if you want to view it later, you can always view the entire presentation. And then just a reminder, if you can, at the bottom of the BrightTalk platform, there is a rating, and we would appreciate the 5-star rating on that if you're so inclined. Gautam, was there anything you wanted to add on that as we're reviewing the additional questions?
No, I think the typo is basically the gentleman is asking for getting a copy of basically the link to the webinar at their email. So I think you already covered that this is available on BrightTalk, and yeah, we'd be glad to email that link over to you as well. But this is a recorded webinar, so it should be available on BrightTalk platform.
Got it. The new question coming in is if there's a reason why there are so many keys, and that is so FEITIAN gives the variety of keys as well as form factors so we can best support the application. As Andrew had indicated, it's not just about having a great protocol, but it's about making it user-friendly so they actually use the protocol. And in that, there may be applications where the users just need a very simple solution. There may be applications where the users need an interface that they can use over a mobile device, and then higher levels of security where they would use a biometric as well as an ease of carry wearable such as a card form factor. So it is a challenge to keep up with the different varieties of them, but we feel at FEITIAN that it gives us the best effort to allow you to get the right card with the right protocol for each individual user. Andrew, was there anything else that you wanted to add?
No, nothing to add. Since we're short on questions, let me add one for the two of you. I'm going to put you on the spot. What are the most common business challenges that your customers are facing? So when you first engage with customers, what's the most common thing you're hearing that they're seeking to address with FEITIAN solutions and security teams?
A lot of times, I'll take it first, Gautam, and then if you want to add on, if that's okay. Yeah. So a lot of times the individuals are still learning about the FIDO protocol. And the first part of any discussion with an organization is to first take a temp check, if you would, temperature check, where I have to say how familiar you are with FIDO. And at this point, even high levels of security administrators and leaders are still challenged with some of the finer points regarding FIDO and the protocol itself and how the asymmetric key pairs work. So when that happens, I have to do a little bit of a drill down, and that's kind of the biggest part, is to make sure that they have an introduction into FIDO. The good news is that once they see all the associated security benefits with the protocol and the options to interface with it, they're very willing to proceed in some form in a passwordless. Gautam, would you like to add on to that?
Yeah, I think you've covered it, but what I would add is that, OTP has been, is a very mature technology, has been there for, literally decades and decades, right? So, a lot of the customers have got used to that, and sometimes it takes time for at least enterprises, large enterprises, to adopt a new protocol like FIDO, given that it's still relatively new and there isn't a lot of technical talent. So I have to applaud what the FIDO Alliance has done is in terms of the certification program that the FIDO Alliance is working on. I think that's really immensely going to help, educate the world with technical talent, so that when enterprises want to actually deploy FIDO, there is a certified consultant or there's a certified, technical person that can actually handhold the enterprise and deploy FIDO. Because I think FIDO has reached the maturity, has reached the momentum, and has collaboration from big companies, including Apple now, that it is now full throttle by having this kind of certification, which again, I applaud you, and I think it's a perfect strategic move. I think it's going to explode. And that's why, as FIDO explodes, we are ready. We do see a lot of demand. We do see a lot of curiosity about the passwordless, the biometrics, including the fingerprint cards. That is the future. And so enterprises that are they are positioning themselves, they know that they'll be left behind if they don't act quickly. So I think that the certification, I think, is the right time right now. So in the next 1 year, I think, if we have this technical talent, enterprise will be able to quickly shift from legacy solutions into more modern FIDO and FIDO 2. So I think we are ready for it. I think that's where the world is heading, and it is a challenge currently because of that lack of awareness and knowledge. But I think we are in the perfect right direction. So very excited about where we are today.
Awesome. Andrew, would you like to do a quick wrap up?
Yeah, sure. No, so thanks again for having me on your webinar today. Again, FEITIAN obviously has a lot of products and solutions to offer in the space, and as Gautam has said, there's just a ton of momentum. I think right now behind FIDO as more and more companies realize that not only is there a need to address a password problem, but now there's a way to do it by looking for FIDO certified solutions and moving to a better form of user authentication. So hopefully today's conversation gave you a good feel for FIDO in general, and as well as for FEITIAN's products. If you want more information on FIDO, please visit the website or follow us on any of our social media channels where we are as FIDO Alliance. So thank you.
Got it. Thank you very much, Andrew, for your participation. As a board member, we always like to promote not only FEITIAN, but also the FIDO protocols, and it's easy to do that because it's a really needed service at this point, and we work with a great group of companies that are doing that, as well as you and your FIDO Alliance staff. So just in closing, again, I'd like to remind everybody they have a rating. There is a survey that is out there somewhere. We'll coordinate to see if you can get to that. If you can complete the survey, that would be great. On the screen, I'm showing again the 20% off discount code for an order of any size with the FIDO key. It's one order per customer, and that's only going to be available for the next 24 hours. So we want to, FEITIAN and I would like to thank you for joining us, and we definitely look forward to your communication. If there's anything else you have, please contact at the associated emails or through the FEITIAN FT Safe website. This concludes our briefing.